Yo, we are ready to rock some wrestling. I got the man himself, Big Daddy Storm, Chad Martin, with us. And Chad, before we get into it, man, I gotta plug our sponsor, Chinook Seedery. This episode is being brought to you by them, the official sunflower seed of not just baseball players, not just wrestlers, not just bored people that are sitting in the office trying to pass time. Anybody that wants a flavorful snack, that wants craft seeds, no junk. They got all the flavors you can think of, from wild to mild. My personal favorite, sitting right here on my desk, got a little bag full of the Parmesan pepper. I also got the smokehouse barbecue, and believe it or not, I haven't tried it yet, but it's unopened, but soon to be open, probably first thing tomorrow when I'm in the car getting ready to head and get my day going. But Chad, I got to get to you, man. It's wrestling is in the air, man, and you've had a chance to sit in the nice, beautiful sunny beaches of Florida, man. You're feeling good. I saw a picture of you with, obviously one half of the Bluff City Wrestling Tag Team Champions. You're soaking in the water with the belt, just showing it off, showing everybody, man. I got to ask, what's going on in your world, man? How are you?
Dude, great. And let me tell you something. Being one half of the Bluff City Tag Team Champions, by far the longest reigning champions in Memphis, period, for the last few years. But we decided we want to take a little vacation. We head down to Florida, your neck of the woods.
Sure.
And let me tell you, we have done nothing but party with our baby girls. And I'm talking about those beautiful Bluff City bells all weekend. The saddest part was we had to leave Florida to go home and deal with the trash that usually tries to come after our gold. So, look, we've been up and down the roads for the last few weeks, hot and heavy. Won an individual championship at another company. My partner did the same thing, and now I think we kind of made a pact. It's time to take all the gold in Bluff City.
I was going to ask that. Like, how much gold is left? I mean, obviously, you got
There's a stalled vehicle
different.
ahead.
Oh, there's a stalled vehicle ahead. Let's get it. Maybe they want some. Maybe
I'm
they
sorry,
want
y'all
some.
are going to deal with Alexa sticking her nose in all
I'm
the
telling
way
you.
here.
Well, when you're the champion, not only the tag champion, but you got other championships with you. Everybody wants in your business. They want to be either a part of you or they want to try to pull you down. So I got to ask you. You obviously are headed back to the Bluff City. What is going on once you get back to the Bluff City? You're refreshed, you're relaxed, you're sunny. You got a little golden tan to you. You're looking good, man. Like, what's up?
Yeah, I appreciate it, but you gotta get re-energized. You gotta re-energize your batteries a little bit. And if anybody's been watching Bluff City for any extended period of time, one thing has been obviously clear to anyone who watches, and that's Brody and myself, along with our manager, who is one half of Memphis Vice. That's old school right there. Have been the most dominant thing in Bluff City, and not in just Bluff City, but in the whole Memphis area. When we come out, the energy level goes up, everybody gets excited, and they know that we mean business. And so we have people coming after our titles left and right, but we noticed one thing in particular is happening in Bluff City. The champions who carry those other belts, namely the Bluff City Heavyweight Championship and the Southern Heavyweight Championship, are trash. They're not good. They don't deserve to carry those belts. Who deserves that is Brody and myself, because not only are we a great tag team, we are great singles wrestlers. We do it all. We're very well rounded. And so our pact was, we're going to go in here to Bluff City when we get back, and we're going to start steamrolling everybody else until you can prove that you can stick another actual professional wrestler in the ring with us and get the job done. And that's kind of where our mindset's at. It's been great coming back from Florida, rejuvenated, to feel that motivation to get out there and get it done.
You know what I hear? This is exactly what I hear. Everyone in Bluff City is now on notice.
Oh, yeah.
So you better get ready, because the boys are coming. All right. There's not enough gold for them shoulders, and there's not enough gold for them to carry. They want it all. They want the smoke, and they're coming for it. They're not dodging anybody. They're not ducking anybody. You run your mouth, you're going to get punched. So I can't wait. I can't wait for you to get back. I'm excited.
Dude, and that's what it's all about. And we try to teach these young guys, if you're not motivated, if you don't have enough gumption yourself to set a goal and go achieve that goal, hell, that's on you, man. And we are all about setting goals and just smashing them down. because you get to a point in your life where people say you can't do it. I hate being told what I cannot do. My partner hates being told what he cannot do. And so we take it pretty personally.
And that's why you're striving to be the best. I mean, you're separating yourself from everybody else, and it is not even close. It's not even close. But I got to talk wrestling with you. Let's get into some of these headlines. Obviously, if you don't know, well, the Royal Rumble, which is my personal favorite event, and I think it just stems back to being a kid, and like that's just the action and the anticipation of who's coming out next and any surprises. But it's coming to my hometown, Tampa Bay, in January. So I got to ask, in regards to the Royal Rumble or any like Royal Rumble style match, are you a fan of those type of matches?
The Royal Rumble is actually my favorite pay-per-view or premium event, if you want to call it that now. It always has been. I love the Royal Rumble style match. And I like that there's something on the line for winning the Rumble. It's just not saying, oh, look, I won a battle royal. It's always been unique. And you know what you're going to get with it for the most part. But here, almost, with the exception of maybe a couple, you see some unique things that make sense in the Rumble itself. It's just a lot of fun to watch. It's just absolutely my favorite. And Tampa's going to be a fun place to do it. We just drove through Tampa.
Well, I mean, we've had WrestleMania, but I think we've had the Rumble back before I lived here. But I'm excited. I'm definitely on the list to get the notification when tickets go on sale, because I want to be the first to get mine. Storm, I just want to send this invite out to you, man. If you're in town or you want to come, let's go.
I'll do it.
Yeah, let's do
Hell
it.
yeah. Dude, I'm there.
We'll tear it up. We'll have a good time. More importantly, we'll just get to look and just shine, and I'll get a little shine just being next to champions. So that's kind of like that's selfish, of me to invite you down, but I want some of that shine too. I'm not gonna fight you.
Yeah, always, bro.
I'll take some of the rub from you. But the second thing that's big in the news of wrestling is WWE is now turning the reins, so to speak, and it's not so much run by Vince McMahon. He's still a shareholder, but not majority shareholder. He just sold off a bunch of shares, and he's taken a step back, kind of. So this is the first time that I can think that he's ever shown any type of will to give up any monicum of power. So I guess my question for you is, do you believe that he is no longer the guy pulling the strings? Or is it's just always going to be in him to do that?
Well, I think the biggest thing with this was that, Vince is always and will always be associated with WWE regardless of what power he has in it. When you talk about WWE, you got to talk about Vince McMahon and what he did. So I think a lot of the whole selling purpose was we got to bring him back for the sake of the sale, and to convince board members and shareholders that this is a good thing and a good business move. Now, going forward, I think Triple H is probably your best bet to actually run the company and bring it into a new era, because Triple H is one of the guys that has his actual finger on the pulse of professional wrestling. He's never been, whether you like the guy or not, it's beside the point. But the guy is a genius at what he does, and he understands it. And Vince, as much as I love Vince McMahon, the things he's been able to come up with and do, he's just way outdated right now. And I think, and who knows, but I just don't think that Vince himself is. I think they used him to guide for what they needed out of him, but I think you'll see more and more of that power peel back.
Yeah, I want to say that I read something that when he took over control, or majority shareholder, or I don't even think they were publicly traded back then. They weren't. But when he bought the company, it was for $1 million. And I think this latest valuation was over $1 billion with a B. So when you talk about taking something from nothing and building it into an empire, like the guy, for that alone, you gotta respect that. I do agree with you in a sense that there are things, it's kind of like the ebbs and flows and transitions of wrestling, and he did a great job of the ebbs and the flows and staying relevant and staying hot and staying new. But I would say probably the last 10 or 12 years have been, I think, more so towards the last five, but I would say it's been a tough sledding for him as far as the criticism he's getting on creative and being fresh and being new. And I think it's a lot about what you said. Like at some point, you don't have your finger on the pulse of what's hot, and you need a young guy that can find those things out and dig for those. And I think, not that Triple H is the youngest guy, but I think he has a little bit of juice left in him to do that, because he's not one of those guys that's still in the ring wrestling, and he maybe would if he could. But I think he has a good idea of what people want to see, or he surrounds himself with people that know what fans want to see.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So I'll ask you, are you intrigued in this move? Are you are hopeful, and like, because
I think, Daniel, you always want to be hopeful. You're always hoping that they're going to actually put the pieces in place to move the product forward, that the wrestling business itself will continue. Now, I say this all the time, and I 100% believe it. WWE is more sports entertainment than it is professional wrestling. I'm a professional wrestler. That's more sports entertainment, but I still love it. And I still watch it. And I just want it to be good, because you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have both things. I just want WWE to be good and have things make sense. I think that's where Triple H comes in and he's best at. And you've got a lot of the guys and the producers in the back, like your Michael Hayes, who live this world and breathes this world and understands it. You have to have those guys. My only concern is you start bringing in outside people who do not understand professional wrestling, and you have another WCW. Because WCW has proved that you can take a company that was on top, because they were, and you can totally demolish it in 5 years span.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and even before NWO, let's say, WCW it took a guy like Goldberg to really like infuse something, because you had your Sting, but you had like the blonde hair and face paint Sting, the red and the blue. You had your Ric Flair, but I think Ric Flair really wasn't a WCW guy. Like he had to. I think it took a lot of work for him to be considered a WCW guy. I think a lot of people were like, no, it's a NWA guy. Like that's what he's about. But you're right. It's you don't want that WCW. You don't want that 5 year. Oh, it's hot now. You want some sustained, drive and durability. For when my kids, get my age, I want it to still be around. I still want to be watching it and enjoying it and participating and going and being a fan. So I'm interested to see what this acquisition does and what the direction is. And I think you're right. Hopeful has got to be the word that you got to use, just because we love the product.
Oh, absolutely.
So the last little headline I want to get to before we start unpacking all the wrestling that occurred this week is PWI, the top 500 list came out. The top 10 was revealed. So the first question is, the list itself, is that a big deal?
It used to be. It used to be amongst the boys all the time. I mean, if you could get on there, even if you were, my partner was actually in the top PWI top 500. So he actually made the list, and it's a big deal. Back then, you thought, if I could just make this national and worldwide magazine as a professional wrestler, you were doing something. Now, over the years, it's become less and less of a big deal, because, sadly, like so many other things, it's become more political motivated than anything else with the people who make it up. But to me, it can still be a good thing. I just don't know how much I agree with them. When I saw the top 10 on the top 10, I was like, okay, this is not truly the top 10 of the PWI. There's no way this is your top 10. I don't have a problem with Seth Rollins being number one.
No, I think we'll get into it. I think there needs to be a clear delineation of, and I think you said it earlier, a pro wrestler and a sports entertainer.
Yep.
Because to me, a sports entertainer can garner popularity from the pomp and circumstance and the machine that can be pushed behind them. But that doesn't make them a good pro wrestler. And when I look at PWI and the root and what it is, I think it's the best pro wrestler. And so the top 10, let's get into it. And I'll say this, I don't think the top 10 is any indication of the best pro wrestlers. I think it's a mixture of guys that have worked really hard and have had sustainability, and they've made something out of nothing, or they've been taken by the machine and they've harnessed every bit of it and maximized it. But we'll start with 10 and work our way up to 1. Number 10, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, obviously, started in WWE. Everybody knows the family lineage. Went over to AEW from the ground up, worked it, got it going, got it running, and then went back to WWE. I can't say one way or another, but here's my only grief with Cody Rhodes is that he was hurt for the majority of the year. So, where does that factor in with being in the top 10? I don't know who number 11 is. I think that would be probably the case that you would have to look at of comparison. Why was he 10 and not 11 when he only wrestled for half the year or half of the rating for this?
And I think the thing with Cody Rhodes is we all know his talent level. It's there. His pedigree, of course, is there. And Cody can do it all. I mean, he can talk, he can sell, and he's not afraid. I think this is one of the reasons why he's at least number 10. And I've got him higher. But because when he got hurt, he tore his pec. He still came out there and had a match. And how many other guys just quit? They wouldn't show up. Right? They're just, I'm done until I get better. And not Cody, because he knew how much this meant. And who his daddy was, he's seen what his dad went through. The injuries he still had to wrestle with. And Cody is an actual true professional wrestler. He works in sports entertainment. So he can do the pomp and circumstance, but his is not over the top. Cody draws you in. Cody is a true professional wrestler. And I think Cody should be higher on this list.
I agree with that. And for a lot of the reasons, and here's the thing. Have you ever torn a pec?
No, I tore my quad.
So when you tear something, there's pain. There's obviously doing what you do differently. And he was able to do that on a grand scale. But obviously, too, with Cody Rhodes, what his daddy was about being a blue collar guy, being that hard worker and not letting anything hold you down. And when you don't feel your best, you're still going to go out there and do the best you can. And he had no choice but to go out there, and he put on a show, an amazing show. And I always wonder, had he not been hurt, would it have altered his course any? Because obviously, Seth Rollins then becomes the guy who then becomes, heavyweight champion for the first time. And could that have been Cody had that injury not happened? And we could be saying Cody at number 1 and not number 10.
Yeah, I think as far as this list, he would definitely be up higher easily, because then we wouldn't have to ask any of the questions, right?
Right.
But who? And that's the problem with that is you play a guessing game. It's who really knows? But because I think Cody's trajectory wouldn't be much different than it is.
Yeah.
Because I'll never believe 100% that he was taking that belt off Roman Reigns before WrestleMania of this coming year happens. I just don't think it's going to happen that way.
No,
That's
I
just my
think
personal belief.
yeah, I think what WWE or whoever is writing this story, I think this was a long, long, slow burn story, and I think it's got a lot of layers to it. And I think I don't think WrestleMania in Los Angeles last year was the time that they were ready to culminate that story.
Yeah, I
Now,
agree.
in Philly coming up, possibly, and you know we
It
might
will
we
be
we might
interesting.
yeah we might be there. But getting back to the list, you got Josh Alexander at 9, Orange Cassidy at 8. Anything about Josh Alexander or Orange Cassidy? Does that ring a bell? Does that strike anything with you?
Well, it's not. I mean, I don't consider those top 10 guys. Orange Cassidy is popular. He's super popular, and he will do anything and everything to his body. And again, that's not my style. It's not something that draws me in as a wrestling fan. I need story and I need substance. I need to know that these guys are out here doing it. Doesn't weigh 120 pounds, and it's just but that's the great thing about wrestling, right? There's a little bit of everything for everybody, and certain people are going to just gravitate towards certain things. For me, it's all about the wrestling, and it's all about what it does to you and how it makes you feel, and not the pop of the spot. I don't get off on the pop of the spot. I need substance for the whole match, and like I said, I like Orange Cassidy, but I'm just not impressed with. He's not a top 10 guy. Anytime you put your hands in your pockets, you'll kick somebody's ankles real lightly. The first time that happens, he's probably getting buried between the bottom of the ring.
Yeah. So with him, like here's what I'll say. First thing is, out of all the people on the list, he's defended his title, or what used to be his title. He no longer has it, but he defended it 3 times more than anybody else on the list and won every single time. And whether that's popularity, whatever the case may be, he did a good job of getting himself over. He had a little gimmick that he mastered, and he got people to buy into it. And yeah, you're right. When you have to suspend disbelief a good amount with him to understand that, I'm gonna, suit my super kick to you is gonna be a small little tap in the shin. But I think he's done everything he's asked, and what I will say is I like him better now, right? Prior to losing against John Moxley, he was able to cut a promo. He was able to show some emotion. He was able to get fired up and fight. So maybe this is kind of the turn for him. We'll see. I don't have any problem with him being in the top 10, but I agree with you. This could be a little bit of a popularity contest with him.
But here's the thing, real quick, is that with him, he has talent. I mean, it's obvious when you watch him.
Right.
It's just some of the little things need to go away because he knows how to engage a crowd. It's just the silly things that, to me, neuter him a little bit than what he needs to be. You need to let this man just go and then see what he can really do.
Do you think being in a faction helps or hurts you?
Depends on the faction. There are way too many of them right now. And being a faction can be fun and it can be helpful if it helps the entire group. The problem is you see a lot of factions are only helpful for the leader of the group. That they don't really help everybody else. That it seems like the rest of the group is just a comedy of errors, right? They're just there to help the main guy get over and stay over. Right. And that's what a top guy can't do. And in faction, like the Four Horsemen were all about each other. It wasn't just about me being Ric Flair or you being Tully Blanchard. It was about Arn Anderson. It was about the whole group. And whoever you put in there, Barry Windham, Lex Luger, didn't matter. It was still about the group. And to be a great faction, you have to have that. And I don't see many factions these days that really do.
We'll get into factions as we get into the top 3 here in a second, but 7, you got Okada. 6, you got MJF. 5, you got El Hijo del Vikingo. And 4, you got Gunther. Now, obviously, Okada, big time name.
Oh, it's so good, dude. Jeez.
Yeah. But you got MJF, who I don't know. I hate him so much, but that means he's doing his job.
Yes.
So as far as on the stick and making people not like you and being a true just he lives and breathes MJF, like the persona that it is. He's the same guy all the time. I got kind of thrown off about him with Adam Cole over this past few months because it wasn't the MJF that I was accustomed to.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get back to that, super like, white hot heel that everybody hates because that's my favorite MJF.
That's when he's at his best, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what, I think that's what makes him the money, you know? Um, what are
100%.
your thoughts on Gunther? Gunther being 4. Longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, breaks Honky Tonk Man's record. Just a big body guy. Just, to me, he's impressive.
I love Gunther. I mean, I wasn't thrilled with the name change. I understand why they did it. And now that it's gotten so over the where it is and everybody knows him, like he himself said he would never go back to his other name because the Gunther name is over and it's really symbolic of who he is. But the guy is amazing. He's really good. The only thing I hate about him, and I don't even hate it about him, I hate that he throws those chops because I hate a chop. And those are deadly, the ones that he throws.
Look, let me
They
tell
are
you, man. Let me tell you. You're throwing a good chop when people at home sit there and cringe because every time he throws one, I just like I get the chills because it hurts me to watch it and hear it.
and chops are not fun anyway, even from a guy who's weak and can barely throw one. When you get a monster like that who can generate some velocity and some power behind it, oh no, that's not a good thing. That's a bad time.
Is that a receipt thing where somebody gets you a little too stiff, so you give them a nice little chop just to kind of say, hey, brother, I got you.
But now, my thing has always been this: I'm going to treat you how you treat me, and we will go from there. So we'll handle business however we have to handle it. That's always on my opponent. Like I don't throw chops. I just don't do it. It's not my thing. I don't care for it. But if you throw one at me, well, that's a different story.
You better
That's
be
just how
ready. You better be ready.
Just I take it personally. I hate him.
So top 3, going back to a faction. Obviously, no longer a faction anymore, but you got John Moxley at 3, Roman Reigns at 2, Seth Rollins at number 1. Obviously, we all know them being in the Shield. But I'll ask you, is this the right order? Rollins 1, Roman Reigns 2, John Moxley 3?
I think Rollins and Reigns are interchangeable. I think what Reigns has done storytelling wise has been some of the best stuff WWE has put out in over a decade easy. I mean, it's been really great. And I know there's a lot of Reigns haters out there, but this dude can go. He can work with anybody. And Seth Rollins is the same way. I don't care for his 57-foot high moon boots he wears out there and his Galaxian coats and his crazy sunglasses, but the guy can work his butt off. And there's not many better in that ring than Seth Rollins. John Moxley, I hate death matches. I think they're stupid. And I think he's super talented. But I don't think that his death matches should have. I'm not a fan of them. I think that's in this day and age, especially, it's like, dude, you're talented. We get it. You don't have to prove how tough you are. We know. We've seen you out there doing some stuff. And I don't think John Moxley is the number 3 on this list. I don't think he's top 10 on this list.
Well, when we recap, we're going to talk about John Moxley because I got a couple questions that I got to ask in regards to him. And don't get me wrong, just like you said, super talented guy. Number 3, I don't know. I think 2 and 1 are just like you said, super interchangeable. I look at a guy like Seth Rollins who is constantly he's same move set, but kind of different, reinventing himself
Yeah.
just a little bit. It reminds me of like a Chris Jericho, just not like still the same guy, but does something a little bit different every so often to make it seem like it's something different. You
Sure.
know,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think, Jericho is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I just think he's witty, he's funny, he can wrestle, he can go, he reinvents himself, he gets people to like him, he gets people to hate you, whatever it is. Like he seems like he can do it all. And I think Seth Rollins is definitely in that category. And for him to be number one, I'm okay with that. He can wrestle, he can go. You put him in there against anyone, and it looks right. It feels right. Like you don't have any grief about him being in a main event against a Roman Reigns, for instance, or being in a the in mid cards against a Ricochet, or opening up a show against Shinsuke Nakamura. Like you're good wherever he goes. You're happy you get to see a guy like that wrestle. So I'm good with him being number one overall. The top 10 is the top 10, whether I agree or disagree. I think most of them are about right, but I would say the one thing that is still debatable is what the criteria is, and how you get to be
Yeah.
the top 10. So a good data point, I guess, a good fun thing. And as far as wrestlers go, it sounds like, wrestlers in the past seem to value this list a little bit more than they do now, but I'm sure it's still a big deal to be a part of it and be in the top 10 and be number one, and people care about that. But I don't think for me as a fan, it takes anything away or adds anything to me being a viewer or a lover of pro wrestling. Like I could take it or
Oh
leave
yeah.
it.
And the thing is, you see people who pop this list open, they're going to have their own views on, why aren't any of these guys in the top 10? Why isn't the Miz up there? They'll have that opinion.
Yeah.
And again, wrestling is very subjective, so it's not a surprise.
Well, and that's the beauty of wrestling is you want to know, well, my favorite wrestler is Drew McIntyre. Why is Drew McIntyre not on there? Drew McIntyre's not my favorite wrestler, by the way, but some people will go, well, where's my favorite wrestler? 30. Why are they 30? I want them to be number one. And so I think that's cool. That's what's great about this. And you can argue it, you could debate it, you can come on a podcast, we can break it down, we can talk about it, So I appreciate the list for what it is for those reasons. But Chad, we got to get into the long week of wrestling. We had last Monday, we had Raw. We had NXT on Tuesday. We had Dynamite on Wednesday. We had Rampage and SmackDown on Friday. We had Collision on Saturday. And as we recorded it tonight, there's another Monday Night Raw, which I'm waiting to watch until after the episode. But I thought what would be fun is, because there's so much wrestling and it's all jammed into one week, I figured the best way to kind of go through it all real quick and just word vomit it all out there is the way Chris Berman does it when he breaks down NFL prime time. He goes over all the games and just throws out what happened really quick. So I'm going to try to squeeze this into about 5 or 6 minutes. So bear with me, because we're going to try to have a little bit of fun here. But once I'm done, I promise you, we'll spend some time. I'm ask you some questions, breaking it all down, because there's some things I need to know, and I need it from a wrestler's perspective. Because a guy like me, we talked about this. I've taken 0 bumps, so I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be in that ring and the mindset and how things work. So when we get to breaking it down, that's what I want to get from you is the wrestler's point of view. So if you're ready, I'm ready to break down the week that was. So here we go. It's only fitting that I give us a little bit of music here. All right, Chad, here we go. So last week, it was jam-packed. There was a lot going on in professional wrestling. And we're going to start with Monday Night Raw. So it opens up with Jey Uso teaming up with Kevin Owens to take on Finn Balor, Damian Priest. It's a nice little match until Jey accidentally super kicks KO, allowing Judgment Day to win. The next match, Miz defeats Akira Tozawa, getting redemption from the previous week. Gunther and Imperium have a little scuffle with Alpha Academy, but Tommaso Ciampa gets a little jealous and hops in, and he wants some of that action. Where that goes, it's to be determined. Drew McIntyre beats up on Xavier Woods. Who knows why? I don't. Cody Rhodes has a brawl with Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough, the middle child, who has no idea what he's doing. He just wants some airtime, some showtime. He wants some camera time. He gets in the middle of it. You got Shinsuke playing head games with Seth Rollins by attacking Ricochet. So instead of attacking Seth Rollins himself, he attacks Ricochet thinking Seth is going to be mad at that. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But then Monday Night Raw ends with Rhea Ripley defeating Raquel in a rematch for the championship. Rhea, unbeknown to her, has Nia Jax coming back, knocks her out, knocks Raquel out. Where are we going? Triple threat, who knows, maybe. But then that leads us to Tuesday, NXT. Becky Lynch is really the only thing to talk about. Becky Lynch didn't really have any direction on the main roster. She drops down to NXT and wins the NXT Championship over Tiffany Stratton. What is going on? What's going on with Tiffany Stratton? What's going on with Becky Lynch? What's she going to do? Is she going to be a staple on NXT? Or is she going to, defend that title on all the brands? We'll see. Wednesday Night Dynamite. You got Jon Moxley beating Big Bill to retain the International Championship. Moxley doing Moxley things, a lot of blood, a lot of stuff going on, colored up to the T. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. Adam Cole tells Roderick Strong to stop being so worried about MJF and start worrying about Adam Cole. We get in the ring. Don Callis has Takeshita, known as Alpha now because he's beaten Kenny Omega twice. Now has his target set on the IWGP champion Kota Ibushi. Blackpool Combat Club Bryan Danielson with Claudio Castagnoli calls out Big Bill and Ricky Starks. Orange Cassidy then daps up Hook, but Orange Cassidy, you can tell, is still sad about losing his title. Britt Baker steals a win in the Eliminator 4-Way and gets a shot at Saraya next week at Grand Slam for the title. Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara face to face prior to next week's match. Are they friends? Are they enemies? Do they like each other? Do they not? A lot to be determined. MJF then tells Roderick Strong that Samoa Joe will destroy both of them if he gets a chance to. Hangman beats Brian Cage to set up a match with Swerve Strickland. Christian Cage, Luchasaurus call out Darby Allin and Sting. Samoa Joe goes on to destroy neck brace Roderick Strong, setting up a championship match against MJF. Rampage. Lucha Brothers defeat Hardys. Britt Baker calls out the winner of the TBS Championship match with Chris Statlander taking on Jade Cargill. The Kingdom defeats the Fallen Angel. The Acclaim retain the Trios title. Chris Statlander in the main event defeats Jade Cargill to retain the TBS Championship. All signs now are pointing to Jade Cargill leaving AEW, possibly headed to WWE. Collision. Ricky Starks, Big Bill defeat the Blackpool Combat Club with a low blow from Ricky Starks. Powerhouse Hobbs puts everyone on notice while Miro says, "Don't worry about it, Hobbs. You guys will meet again." FTR remains tag team championship against Iron Savages. John Silver picks up a win against Anthony Bowens with the help of Evil Uno. Eddie Kingston calls out Claudio Castagnoli. Aussie Open wins their match, then calls out FTR asking if they are watching them. Andrade beats Scorpio Sky. Bullet Club comes out with Jay White, and Andrade have to be separated by security. Shibata says he's coming. Basically, he's coming. The Righteous go on to beat the Hardys. Ricky Stark says he has to finish this fiasco known as Bryan Danielson, and Chris Statlander retains against Britt Baker when she rolled up Britt while Britt had Chris in the lockjaw. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more from those two. finally bringing us to SmackDown. Pat McAfee opens the show, interrupted by Austin Theory, and then the man himself comes out, The Rock. He ended with the People's Elbow from The Rock, and then Pat got his chance to get some shine, given the People's Elbow. AJ and Finn Balor, great match. Judgment Day interferes and gets kicked out. In the midst, Jimmy Uso calls a distraction, allowing Finn to roll up AJ to get the win. Backstage, Jimmy and Finn are back there. Finn asks Jimmy to get Jay, and both of the Usos join the Judgment Day. You can see Paul Heyman in the back sneaking around, listening, being his little sneaky self. The Street Profits destroy LWO. We see a little tease for Bobby Lashley versus Rey Mysterio. LA Knight continues his hot streak. He beats The Miz, cutting a promo saying he is going after the gold. He thinks he's Big Daddy Storm. He's going for all the gold. He calls Roman Reigns by name. Asuka defeats Bayley when Shotzi comes out. Grayson Waller ends the show with John Cena as the guest. John Cena doesn't even get a word in. Jimmy Uso comes out to interrupt, and then Solo Sikoa pushes Jimmy, but kicks Cena. Both gang up on Cena, and AJ comes back, and they clean house. And that Big Daddy Storm was the week of wrestling. It was a lot.
That was a lot.
Yeah, and I need a break.
Yeah.
But we don't have time for that. So let's break it
Nope,
down.
we got to keep rolling.
Yeah, man, we got to keep rolling. Let's break it down. So obviously, getting into the nuts and bolts of some of these shows. Monday Night Raw. All right, Jey Uso teams up with Kevin Owens to take on Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Jey Uso accidentally super kicks KO, allowing Judgment Day to win. Obviously, you being a tag team champion, how do you feel about tag championships and not just like one set, but like multiple sets in the company? Because you see these guys carrying multiple tag team championship belts. Is that something you're a fan of? Are you a fan of more belts, or do you think it kind of waters down what the belt actually means?
I'm a fan of intelligent storytelling. And that goes along with titles, belts, whatever you want to call them. But like, I don't see the point in having. I've never been one of that's been a fan of the brand split, where you have SmackDown champions and you have Raw champions. Either you're a tag team champion or you're not of the company. Same thing with main titles. I hate the look of the belts. I'm not a fan. I haven't been a fan of any of those. And I wish that they would make a one universal title, just like it's supposed to be in each company. And that the belts would look like a championship belt and not like a prop for advertisement of your company. And that these tag teams, like me and my partner, we've been tag teaming for a little over a year now, and we gel, and that's all we really do is a lot of tag teaming, and we're always talking about things and how we want to do it. We just don't throw two random guys in there, make them a tag team all of a sudden. Then you're going to try to take on two very experienced guys who are a tag team. That makes no sense. We're not going to operate the same, because tag team wrestling is a far cry from singles wrestling. They are not the same monster. They're different. So when I see these things right there, at least they've got the right team winning, because a newly formed team of KO and Jey Uso shouldn't work. Not against an experienced team like Damian Priest and Finn Balor are right now. Even though those guys are singles wrestlers themselves, but they have more experience tagging right now than, say, a Kevin Owens and a Jey Uso do together.
Well, it's kind of like the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest are placeholders of those tag championships for the time being, because Damian Priest holds the Money in the Bank briefcase. So we know at some point, the odds are that, because we know the history behind cashing in, that you're going to be a champion if you have that. So I just don't see Damian Priest being a guy that is a tag champ and a world champion at the same time. So I think when you think about it in terms of that, it's all right. Well, where are they going with the tag championships? Me personally, I would like to see, and we might get there, because there was some inclination of this, is AJ Styles
There's a speed trap ahead.
Finn Balor Bullet Club-esque reunion where they have their own faction. Now, you wanna give me an AJ Styles and a Finn Balor tag team champion? I'll take that all day. Give me those
I
two
would take-
guys. Give me those two guys against Sami Zayn and a Kevin Owens, and I'll gladly give you some money for that match.
Yeah, and I miss the true tag teams out there.
Yeah.
I just miss the true tag teams because
Yeah.
you're a tag team specialist, and that meant something. Because it's a fine craft that you're having to in and out and know what your partner's going to do and not have to say a word. And therefore, your opponents don't know what's about to come. And we don't have that right now. I mean, your best tag team, you just split them up
Yep.
in Jimmy and Jay. The New Day, they just like, well, we're just not going to keep on running with New Day, even though they were so over. It made no sense not to do anything with the New Day, but you just don't have anybody.
Yeah. It's you're right. I mean, some of the when you go back in history, the best tag teams, they were tag team specialists.
They were.
I mean, even when you had trios that, did the revolving of the championships within those trios, but the Road Warriors, those guys weren't singles competitors. Those dudes were straight up tag team dudes, and for as long as I don't ever remember any of them wrestling in a singles match. I'm sure they probably did, but I don't remember seeing them.
They rarely wrestled singles at that time.
So you going through Monday Night Raw, you have Miz. He defeats Tozawa. Obviously, what we expect. But are you a Miz guy?
No. Now I appreciate what Miz has done and where he's come from, but I was never a Miz guy. He's got the most punchable face in all of wrestling.
Is that because he's doing his job?
He's great at his job.
Yeah.
I think he is money on the microphone. He works his butt off, but he's not afraid to do what he's supposed to do for the company and for the business.
Absolutely.
I was just never personally a fan of it.
No, I think if you there's a difference between liking the Miz as a wrestler and appreciating him as a wrestler. Do I like him as a wrestler? No, absolutely not. Do I appreciate him? Yes. He was about building himself back in the day and being a champion. Now he's a company guy. He does whatever they ask him to do, and he does it pretty damn good.
Yeah.
You got Cody having a brawl with Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough. I'm not sure where that's going, but I got to ask you, we talked about Cody. Should be higher in the PWI top 10, but where do you want Cody to go? What is the trajectory you'd like to see him run on?
Well, I think they need to give Cody some dominant wins over higher ranked opponents, and as we get into WrestleMania season, which will be in January, starting at the Rumble. I mean, we need to see Cody go on a fight where he's an actual threat to Roman Reigns to take that title from Roman.
Do you think he is a Royal Rumble winner, and that's how he gets the opportunity at a championship? Or would you like to see him work his way through it and not have to use the Rumble as the way to get there?
I would prefer him not to have to win the Rumble. That'd be a cool thing to win it, sure. But I think with the two different belts that you have, or three, depending on how you look at it, is the winner of the Rumble actually going to get a pick his thing this year? Will they change that? Or they say the winner of the Rumble gets a shot at the WWE Championship belt held by Seth Rollins or whoever's holding that belt at the time.
Yeah, I think that's where we don't know. I mean, I think in the past it's been you get to choose who you want to go after. I don't think in the past it's has been like this is the one that you have to go after. I think they've been given the option since they've done a brand split and they had multiple belts. But whether it's Seth Rollins, I could see the storyline there, or Roman Reigns, you can definitely see the storyline there. You could definitely see the storyline if Triple H doesn't allow Cody Rhodes to go after the one that he wants.
Yeah, and
I don't know if that gets Triple H back in the ring, but you tell me a Triple H versus Cody Rhodes match, I think I'm a little bit invested.
well, that would be good because Cody could carry him what he did to carry him anyway.
Right.
And I think you wouldn't ain't much carrying you'd have to do Triple H. He's still in phenomenal shape. But
Yeah.
because the one factor here that I think we tend to overlook is the Gunther factor. Do they see Gunther as your new old school style heel champion that everybody, again, like Roman, everybody's got to struggle to beat? Will this be the guy? Well, as Gunther's, what he's done over the last few months, especially, has that changed decision making of, you know what? I know we had A, B, and C planned for WrestleMania from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. Here it is. But we've got two X factors here that we're going to have to change the course a little bit. Because I think they've held off way too long on LA Knight.
Yeah.
Right? And I know we'll talk about him, but it's at some point, WWE has to make those decisions. All right, we've got to go with the hot hand. We've seen this a few times. Somebody's firing hot. They just go up. Great example of that. Miro. A great example of that. You got a guy that's on fire. Fans want to be behind him. But they just show because it wasn't their idea. It wasn't their plan to do.
Right.
At the end of the day, you got to make the fans happy. They're your money. That's where it always comes back to.
Yeah, and I think we alluded to it a little bit, is there will be a little bit of what the fans want a little bit sooner and riding that hot wave, because you're right. It's this business is driven by the fan. Like you if you want butts and seats, then you put product out there that the fans want to see, and they'll go out of their way to make ends meet to come watch. But closing out Monday Night Raw, Rhea Ripley defeats Raquel in a championship match. Nia Jax comes back. Obviously, Rhea's beat everybody. So you got to have somebody that is formidable, and I think Nia Jax brings that to the table. But I don't know. There's so many things that are negatives when it comes to Nia Jax. That is, personal stuff, drama stuff. Is she a good wrestler? Is she not? Is she dangerous in the ring? Is she safe in the ring? But I think the biggest thing is there's a way to tie her to the bloodline and have another layer of the story. So where do you see this going?
I love her. I would love her with the bloodline. I can see that. I've never been a Nia Jax fan as far as her wrestling goes, because she is clumsy. She's clumsy and she's dangerous in the ring. But I would love to see her as part of the bloodline, if they're still going to run the bloodline, really. And then, but the problem is that you have to have someone to go against that, and who is that will do that for you? Does Rhea Ripley go full face? What's got to happen there?
Well, I'll bring another person up to you when we get there. But let's keep plugging away. NXT. Really, the big thing with NXT Tuesday night was Becky Lynch takes on Tiffany Stratton, the NXT Women's Champion, and beats her. So now Becky Lynch is the NXT Champion. So you go from Becky Lynch being the highest of the highs and the man, and got this great gimmick and this great persona, a Nia Jax boo-boo accident that created this. But nonetheless, where is she going? And does it degrade, or not degrade, grade, but like, does it diminish NXT or what Becky Lynch is if she's going to NXT to win a championship, or is she going there to build them up, or is she going there to run across all three brands with the NXT championship, taking on whoever?
But I think the biggest thing out of that is that it does diminish the NXT brand. Because now what you're saying is none of the NXT people are good enough to carry the title, and that means there's nobody else on that roster good enough to get in the ring with her. So we have to bring in a former big time champion out there from the main roster, and she goes out there and beats her. And I just think you diminish everybody on your roster when you're doing things like that. I think it's also one of the reasons Cody Rhodes didn't win the WWE Championship when he first came in for Roman Reigns. It makes your rest of your roster look weak.
Well, I think,
yeah,
I think too is they've done a really good job of trying to make NXT, or at least they did for a while, of being the third brand and not making it the developmental, like the minor league system.
Yeah.
But now it almost seems that way, because when you do get to the main roster, Gunther being a prime example, you don't even get to keep your name. You get to come in as somebody totally different. And it's like, how do you like what's the I don't understand that whole thing.
Yeah, I hated that when you would come from an outside company, a true outside company, and I hated the name change. And it makes zero sense to me why you do that within the same company. Like, dude, we've been watching the products. We get it. We know who that guy is. What are you doing?
Right.
It's just insulting. That to me is insulting.
Yeah, it's insulting to the fans. It's insulting their intelligence. For real. Moving on, AEW Dynamite Wednesday night. Jon Moxley beats Big Bill to retain International Championship title. So I told you I was going to come back to this, and I got to ask you, Jon Moxley bleeds in every match, and not just like a little cut on the arm or the leg. It's like face, and it's everywhere, and he's just the Crimson Mask every match. What's your take on blood and how it factors into wrestling?
For one of those reasons, right there. Blood all the time. I don't think it's needed. Those are special occasions where you're at war. This is a culmination of this war we are going through. Why are you bleeding all the time? Because now you're just doing death. You're just doing, again, you're going back to the death match thing. So we're just showing how tough we be. I'm going to bleed all the time, and I'll get all that sympathy that way. And Jon Moxley / Dean Ambrose is way too good to have to do all that stuff. But he does it, and maybe he enjoys it. It's his favorite thing in the world to do. That's crazy. But I'm not a fan of those sorts of things, because blood, when someone gets bloodied and beat, that means they've just been put through it. It's a hard thing to come back from when you're doing that. But now it's like, well, this dude's just really soft, because every time I hit him, he bleeds.
Do you think it's like, so when I think of like, it's almost the expectation, almost like the Dudleys. When the Dudleys came out, people expected somebody to get put through a table.
That's right.
And so now it's almost like the fans are expecting Jon Moxley to bleed. And I guess like if you go to a show, like you want to see what you want to see. But like, to me, I agree with you. I think it makes him look soft and weak. He is a tough guy. We know that. I think what would be crazy is if the tough guy didn't bleed. And it took a lot to get him to bleed. And I'll give you an example. Eddie Kingston, you don't see him bleeding all over the place.
No.
And he is the epitome of the persona of a tough guy.
Yeah, he is.
You know, like he's borderline prickish, but he's also like, I'm from the streets, bro. Like I'm gonna get after it, and we're gonna get down, and we're gonna fight, and I'm a fighter. And even he doesn't bleed like that. So
No.
it makes me wonder, like, how much of a hit does John Moxley take every time he goes out there? Is it taken away from him as a character or as a pro wrestler when he goes out and does that?
Well, to me, it's like a lot of things too. Some guys just get off on it. Like, I'm gonna bleed, and it's gonna be great, and I can't wait to go out there and do it because the fans are gonna love it, and they will love it for the first few times. But then they'll be like, oh, he's bleeding again. It's just what he does. He bleeds. That's his whole gimmick. He bleeds. Nobody cares. Nobody will care eventually
Yeah.
because.
So we got.
So I'm not a fan, buddy.
No, me either. I think it if you want to have a culminating match where it's like a cage match or some type of, like, we've been through 5 or 6 different matches and now we're in a no holds bar and no disqualification match and somebody bleeds, cool. I'm for that because you set that up, but just don't bleed for the sake of bleeding. But I'll ask you, Don Callis. So Don Callis says Takashita is now known as Alpha because he's beaten Kenny Omega twice in a week, and now Alpha's target is Kota Ibushi. What is your take on New Japan Pro Wrestling? Is it obviously not a lot of people here know a lot about, unless you're just a diehard wrestling fan, knows much about New Japan Pro Wrestling, but there is some legit talent that comes from there.
Dude, that's because those guys are not afraid to do everything it takes for the business. Japan, for all the flashy stuff they've incorporated into their product, them suckers will light you up. They're tough, and you gotta be tough to go over there and do the thing over there because it's a different kind of fan base. And when you come out of Japan working, even if you go over here, you get polished up in Japan because it's a different style you have to learn. It's a different toughness and a different mental toughness you have to endure if you're going over to that side of the world and to do this business. And it is not for everybody to be able to do that. I'm not going. I'd never go. I enjoy doing what I do here in the States. There's no way I would go over there and do that. But you make great money. It's a whole different mindset, and you have to learn a whole new skill set if you're going to go over there and work with those guys. But New Japan is a great organization. I think if you want to see some cool stuff and some different things, because there's decades of worth it out there all the way up till now, I think the fans should check it out. For
sure. Talent, just spectacle. It's a different kind of wrestling, but it's definitely, like, impressive to me. And would I want to go there? No, absolutely not. I'll take those guys coming here all day. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing an influx, and one of the things that I do appreciate from AEW is they do intertwine the two wrestling organizations so that Americans can get a glimpse of what New Japan Pro Wrestling is all about, because they get to see some of those guys and they get to see their favorite wrestlers go there. But the next thing I want to ask you about is from Rampage is the Lucha Brothers and the Hardys defeat Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Butcher, and the Blade. How long is Jeff Jarrett going to wrestle?
Well,
and what are your thoughts on Jeff Jarrett being a Club City guy?
Jeff. I love Jeff. Jeff is love, and people have varying opinions on Jeff. But one thing you can't take away from him is he started out as a referee. He grows up to make his own career path without Daddy's help, and took over Daddy's company and made it work for a long time. I like Jeff. Jeff can still go. He bumps his butt off. I mean, the only redeeming quality of Ric Flair's final match was Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's the only reason that even remotely worked. And I think Jeff can still go, and he has a lot to contribute, and he's very smart to the business. People don't like to hear it about it because people have an opinion one way or the other, but the guy's very smart about the business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure him being in the ring, is one thing, but him just being around a young company like AEW is probably worth its weight in gold just because of the experiences he's been with and been around and been through. I mean, obviously the guy has been, sustained himself for decades, so he's got something to give.
And then that's the thing. But have you noticed? And I'll ask you this real quick. I don't want to get off of the deal here, but so AEW has a lot of this. This is AEW's biggest problem is they don't listen to a lot of these vets who know how to work this business and be successful for a company on the level they're trying to get to. I realize they had that big show, 80,000 people strong, but that's one show. They have to learn to continually knock it out of the park. You can't let the inmates run the asylum if you're going to have a successful company.
Yeah, I don't. All right, so I guess we should go there for a few minutes. Obviously, CM Punk said some things. Jack Perry said some things, and there's two sides of this story. One is those that are with CM Punk that, veterans of the locker room are going to tell you how it is, and you got to respect it and you got to do it. And then new school guys like Jack Perry don't want to hear that shit. They don't care. And they want what's entitled to them now. Obviously, I'm not there, nor was I present, and I'm sure most of the truth is out, but I'm sure there's a little bit that's not. But AEW consistently has locker room problems, and so this isn't a one-off. This is something that is constantly a problem. So I think you got to fix it. And where there's smoke, I'm sure there's fire. And so I'm sure this ain't just a nothing thing. I'm sure there are definitely issues. So what would you say is the fix here? Is it just having veterans, or do they need to get rid of some of these young guys to prove a point?
I think it's leadership at the very top, and that starts with Tony Khan. Tony Khan cannot go through here and be one of the boys. He's the owner. He's the boss. He cannot be one of the boys. That's especially when you're dealing with this kind of thing, right? It's like different than doing like a podcast company, for instance, right? You let your hosts do their shows and stuff like that because that's their area of expertise and where they're fun at. But wrestling is a different monster. It's kind of like any professional sport. You got to have the guy on top to make those decisions. Yes, no, I get it. I like you, good person, but look, I'm not having this in my company. Get with the program and you get out. I'm paying you to be here, not vice versa. I'm hiring you to do a job, do your job, or hit the bricks. But that's not what's happening in AEW. AEW, because you got the broskies up there, and I don't mean that as towards a Ryder, but you got these guys who are out there as friends, as just VP in name only, really, making decisions that are horrible, acting like they're 2-year-olds. Like this whole thing with CM Punk was stupid to begin with when it first started. It only got even more ignorant with Jack Perry did. We all know CM Punk could be rough around the edges. There's no question he was probably a smart ass when he said the comment he made about the windshield.
Yeah. He
wasn't wrong about it. He wasn't wrong about it. But that's just how his personality is. You know that when you bring him in there. But that's the thing. You're going to have personalities that you don't want to deal with. But if you're a professional, you deal with it because that's in your job description. I don't have to like you to do my job.
And I
Tony
think
Khan does not separate that.
I also think too, like, there's a lot of like comments about Tony Khan when he makes these special announcements and he's on camera. He just looks like he's so uncomfortable and out of place. But you're right. I think he is a guy who has a deep love for pro wrestling, but instead of running the company, he's trying to be friends with all the people in the company.
And it's a problem that's going to end up costing him. I mean, it already has.
Yeah, I mean, you had a talent that was, it's CM Punk is a name. He's a talent and he's a mind, and he's gonna put butts in seats, especially when one of your biggest draws is the Chicago area. Like he himself is gonna sell out the United Center every night if you have him there, and he was the reason why Collision was able to garner such ratings, is because they knew that CM Punk was going to be on there every Saturday night.
Exactly. And why do you keep poking the bear the way you do and hoping that things to change? I'll never understand, but they can't be, dude. They've got to get in there. He's gonna have to save his own company. I can't. And I know his dad's not a dumb person.
No,
I mean, his
You
dad
don't-
knows what it takes to run a successful business. You got to teach your son something, buddy.
I mean, his dad had no problem getting rid of Urban Meyer as the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, that's a much greater decision and a higher paycheck than a Jack Perry, So I think the business acumen is there and what to do, that's there. It's just, you got to decide, do you want to be friend or you want to be boss? But
That's right.
as we keep plugging away, we had on Collision, and I'm saving SmackDown for last, but on Collision, Andrade beats Scorpio Sky. Bullet Club comes out with Switchblade Jay White. Him and Andrade have to be separated by security. All right. First and foremost, I can't stand on wrestling when security comes out there and separates people. That's one thing that is just dumb to me. And it's like the weakest security unit on planet Earth. But also contract signings are another thing that I just don't like. But I digress. My question to you is the Bullet Club. What's your take on the Bullet Club? How do you feel about the Bullet Club? Do you want to see them garner some popularity throughout AEW and be as big of a thing that as they are in New Japan?
That's it. I love the original Bullet Club. I love their attitude. I love their moxie. I love how they carried themselves. Right, they were a force to be reckoned with. That's what made it popular. The new version, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it still. If they could get back to what they were and make it work and make me believe that, okay, these cocky little punks right here, they're just out here thinking they own everything. I could get invested in that. But I don't see it. I don't see how that's, I'm not, is the problem. I try to watch it. I'm like, I'm just not invested in this yet. I don't know. And maybe it's just me. I mean, it could very well be, but that's just, I love the originals, and this has hurt my soul right here to watch this.
I think you need to see them more. Like, you need to see them on every AEW show. It doesn't have to be in a match. It doesn't have to be in this full-blown segment, but just hanging around in the back, just seeing what's up, just letting everybody know, hey, the Bullet Club is here. Something might happen or something may not happen, but just know the Bullet Club's eyes are on everybody, so be on notice. And I think the more they can incorporate them that way, the more people start going, all right, well, what is this all about? Then you have something big happen with them or to them, creating some type of major story. Right now, I don't think there's a major story for them, so they're just kind of like they're just kind of an afterthought.
Well, if you take the NWO, when the NWO first started, it was great because you never knew what was about to happen. It was, this is about to get crazy. But then when they got it oversaturated, it was like, oh, I don't care. Take those lessons. Yeah. Make the Bullet Club mean something like you're talking about, and they'll have a hit on their hands.
I agree. So riding into SmackDown Friday night, I mean, I listened to Pat McAfee. I heard The Rock on the show. I knew he was going to be on game day. But as far as being on SmackDown on Friday night, I had no idea. So it was nice to be tuned in and see my boy Pat McAfee, kicking off the show. And then Austin Theory. God, Austin Theory is so good. Like, I love to hate him. And that's how I know that he's that good. Yeah. And they are putting a lot of faith in him because they bring The Rock out. And The Rock, I mean, granted, Austin Theory's now taken a stunner from Stone Cold and the People's Elbow from The Rock. He's taken an AA from John Cena. But you're talking about three guys that are possible, if not definite, Mount Rushmore guys, and you're in
no
the ring
doubt.
with them, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're taking their finishers, but you're going toe to toe on the microphone with The Rock. You're going toe to toe on the microphone with John Cena. You're in the ring with Stone Cold. It doesn't get much better than that. They're putting a lot of faith in this guy. I think, he might be the next thing. I don't know, but they're definitely
think he could be.
setting him up.
Theory's good. He is incredible. I love watching Theory work. He's smooth in the ring. Like you said, his mic skills have gotten phenomenal. And they weren't just really bad anyway, but he's not afraid to be out there. And the Steve Austin thing helped him out tremendously.
Yeah.
And when you add Pat McAfee into the business, I love Pat.
I
love Pat McAfee. He's great.
What's your thoughts on The Rock? You a Rock fan? You glad to see him?
Yeah, I always have been. I've always been a Rock fan. Because The Rock was the first one just to say whatever. You're like, can we say that? What is he talking about, right? And it was entertaining. Because you always wanted to see what kind of stupidity is he about to come up with that's going to make me laugh and really pop hard.
That's a nice that's a nice segue into what my next question was. Is all right. SmackDown. I have a huge problem with this. The Rock can say bitch ass on the microphone and it doesn't get muted. But the fans can't chant holy shit without being muted.
Yeah.
Like it almost got to a point where I was getting pissed off because it was taken away from the segment because the guys were muted and their microphones are muted and you couldn't really hear everything they were saying because they were trying to keep you from hearing what the crowd was chanting.
Yeah.
And so like I just say this, like, Fox, give me a break. If The Rock can say it, then everybody can say it. Like,
and that's their deal, dude. It's because the WWE is so child friendly now. Because they know that's their bread and butter. I mean, they make a ton of money from all the merch for kids, and they know the parents have to bring the kids. So I get it. I understand it.
Well, and
However,
you know how it is.
That is dumb.
If you want a sustainable product, you always got to be marketing to the younger audience.
Yep.
Because if you suck them in and make them fans for life, then you're always going to be having. And that's why I say WWE can be vanilla at times, but I understand why. Like, it is a business, and you want to get kids, and I appreciate that, because at some point I want to take my kid to an event, and I want it to be an event that they enjoy. But I also want it to be some of the things that I like too. So, moving past that, Jimmy, I'll just say this: the Usos. What are we doing? Jimmy Uso's in it with AJ Styles, and Jay is in it with Judgment Day. I don't know who's doing what or where this is going. Or is this just a road that's going to eventually lead us back to the bloodline?
I would not be surprised if everything we've seen has been a red herring. All right? Jay's not really mad at Jim or Solo or Roman. It was a plan all along. That wouldn't surprise me if they pulled that card. Of course, it could be that Jay's just like, I'm tired. I want to wrestle on my own, see what I can do. And if he gets over it, great. If he doesn't, they'll bring him back into the bloodline and say it was a plan all along.
So
but they're the best, some of the best workers in the company, though.
Yeah, I mean, when it's all said and done, you think Usos go down as one of the best tag teams ever?
By far. I mean, they've done nothing but become tag teams, dude. That's been their whole deal, right? This whole time has been their tag team status.
Yeah.
So those guys, they don't even have to. They don't have to talk about anything, really. They just flow from one thing to the next. This is a minor thing. I say it's minor. It's not really minor. It pisses me off. I hate throwing 74 super kicks in a match. The Hart Foundation didn't have to do anything. Once you got hit with that little running clothesline and Ample held him up and Brett hit him with it, and then all of a sudden here comes the sharpshooter, it was over. Right? There wasn't a bunch of that. Shawn Michaels hit you with one super kick, you were done. Going way back before that, Chris Adams, where we first learned what a super kick was, you were out. I just don't. I think if they want to truly be the best tag team, I think they're already up there. There's not many people. There's none now that's better than them. There's nobody out there now that's better than the Usos. On a tag level, the way they are right now, you can't touch those guys. And look, and here's the thing. I have become more and more adept at tag team wrestling, right? And the ins and outs of what it takes. And I said at the beginning of this, I'm old school. I love old school wrestling, and that's how we do it. We're not fancy. You got to go in there and do it. And outside of Brody and myself, and when I try to justify what tag team is great, it's only tag teams that are able to go in there on a weekly basis. And you know that this other team's going to have to work their butts off to get over on these guys. It's going to take something extra because they're just so good at what they do. And that's why I think the Usos are absolutely one of the best just around, period. I mean, you never know what they're going to pull out. They can do it from all angles. And I think that makes them great.
They're one of those tag teams where you're never mad when they win. Even if they beat your team or whoever you're wanting, whoever they're facing, if you don't want the Usos to win and the Usos end up winning, you understand. Because they're just that damn good. I want to talk a little bit about LA Knight before we wrap this thing up. We mentioned him, a few weeks ago, how hot he was and how over he was, and he's still to the point where he's there. He actually cut a promo. He beats The Miz. He cuts a promo, and he calls out a few different guys with championships by name, and it puts emphasis on Roman Reigns. So I'll ask you, as from a wrestler's, point of view, if you're hot and you're that over, where should you go for the top, or is there like justification for him to chase a U.S. title or an Intercontinental Championship?
I think, and that depends really, because with your top spots, with it being two different championships, that he would have to go the word Reigns or Rollins. I don't know how the problem with a guy like LA Knight is the fans want him pushed. Most of the guys want him pushed, but upper management is trying to hold him back. I don't think Triple H is. I think that's a Vince thing more than anything else, and maybe a couple other guys. But LA Knight, he needs a title because he can make the title relevant. The title's not going to make LA Knight, but he can actually make your title relevant, which automatically seals him into a deal for the next tier. So why not him and Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship or going for the U.S. Championship? Why not do something like that? It would only help the company. It's going to help the storyline. You're going to keep LA Knight relevant until you're ready for him to go after the big one. And then you have a decision to make. Is he going to be the guy that carries it? I don't think they'll do that. Because I'll ask you this, Daniel, when you look at that WWE roster, who up there is really the biggest threat and the legitimate threat to beat Roman Reigns?
Honestly, I don't see one. And that's the problem. And a lot of it is because he's beaten everybody that they put in front of him. And yeah, it's taken
That's correct.
2 years' time and not a whole lot of matches, but I don't want to see another Drew McIntyre. Seth Rollins has got his own thing, even though I think that would be my choice if Seth Rollins wasn't a champion. But Gunther being one of them, but he's got his own thing. If that concludes and we pass that championship over to someone else, then yeah, I think that's a great match. But I think to answer your question, when I think about, all right, who could be the face and beat Roman Reigns, I don't see any of those guys. The only guy that I see is Jimmy or Jay, And that's only because like the storyline has allowed me to believe like they could actually do something like that. But I don't think they're not the face of that company. And I don't think WWE would let that happen. So that's why you get these names like The Rock coming back and constantly in the title picture. And even Cody to some extent, like, is he the guy? I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah. And that's the question. That's a big
and
one.
that you're right. That's the money question. And I think a lot of the reason why this bloodline story has gone on and been so long is because they got to decide, well, what's going on next? What are we doing? Um, the last thing I'll end with is we talked about, Rhea Ripley and a lot of the same things. She's just beaten everybody, and now you got Nia Jax coming. But when it comes to someone formidable, I think Jade Cargill from AEW, now she's done. She's headed out. I think she, body wise, is someone that you can put her in the ring next to a Rhea Ripley, next to a Charlotte Flair, next to anybody, and you go, holy shit, that's power, that's strength, that's the total package. My only question with someone like Jade Cargill, do I think that she's going to WWE? Yes, because I think she's money. And I think from a business standpoint, it's either now or never. But I'm not sure about the wrestling part of it. Because we all know Charlotte is the best wrestler. But can someone like Jade stay in a wrestling match with someone like Charlotte? Despite the look and despite them stacking up and looking like she can beat her, but can she wrestle with her? Can she make it look believable?
I think Charlotte is so good and so head and shoulders above everybody else that it would work with Charlotte. And Rhea's finding her way. She has really come a long way, and she's really good. But it would be a different kind of match, and that's where my biggest question is, because I'm a Rhea Ripley fan. She's badass, and she has put down a lot of. But is she good enough to carry that load that way to have a match that will be comparable? Because you're always going to have to compare any female championship wrestler to Charlotte Flair. And we had an argument with a buddy of mine a couple of weeks ago about Charlotte Flair. Well, she's just there because she's Ric Flair's daughter. No, she's not. She's that damn good. She's super athletic. She's more athletic than most of the guys on the roster. And she just naturally took to it because it's not a business she wanted to do. But once she decided she was going to do it, she threw herself into it. You can have genes from a lot of people, but that doesn't mean you're going to be good at it. Look at all the failures of second, third generation wrestlers. So Charlotte's your top dog. And that's a big shadow to live up to for any of these female wrestlers to come in and try to overcome.
I mean, for her, if she was half as good as she is now, you would have been like, that's pretty good.
Yep.
Especially with exactly what you just said. Like all that she has to live up to, the name and who she's associated with. You're not talking about just someone who held a championship. You're talking about the greatest of all time, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
And when you start saying, well, she's the daughter of the greatest of all time, she has to be the greatest of all time. Well, no, she doesn't. But guess what? She might be. And that's crazy to even think. It's like a LeBron James or a Bryce Harper, guys who are these prodigies as kids, and they end up living up to the hype. And it's just unbelievable to see, like, if they were half as good as we thought they were going to be, they would still be pretty good. And the same thing with Charlotte Flair. She's unbelievable. She's definitely the best women's wrestler on the roster. I think having, someone formidable is great, but they got to be able to wrestle with her.
But to answer your question, you bring Jade over and her and Rhea go at it, that's going to be a money match.
Yeah.
It may not be the prettiest match, but it'll be a money match that people will buy tickets to see.
Yeah, and I think you can put. I think one of the things that would work in Jade's favor is having the machine and some money and some lights and some entrance and just this thing behind her.
Yep.
But yeah, having her come over, I think, would be an asset, and I probably foresee that happening sooner than later. But Big Daddy Storm, we got to put a bow on this thing, man. Let's wrap this thing up. We got some. Obviously, we're trying to do wrestling at least once a month, so we got a couple of pay-per-views coming up before our next show. So I want us to be ready. October 1st, you got AEW Wrestle Dream in Seattle, and then October 7th, you got WWE Fastlane, and then we will record right after that. So I think, obviously Fastlane, we kind of know what we're going to get. It's kind of an in between, pay-per-view or a premium live event that we're going to get prior to Survivor Series.
Yes, absolutely.
I hope we get, War Games Survivor Series. I hope, you get something good. Like, what I would love to see is like a bloodline back with like a AJ, Finn Balor, Bullet Club-esque, but Good Brothers, like, just get after the match.
That'd be cool.
Maybe Finn, AJ, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Usos, Solo, Roman. Like, I think I could get down for that. But either way, when we come back, in October, we're going to be talking about those two pay-per-views. We're going to be getting ready for Survivor Series. But is there anything that you want to see between now and then? Any storylines that you hope come to fruition, or anything, or anyone that you're looking forward to kind of moving their way up or seeing what happens?
I'll tell you what, I want to see. Oh, geez, my mind just went blank. But was it Brock? Not Brock. What's the kid's name? Steiner.
Oh, Braun Breaker.
Yeah, Braun Breaker. I don't know why I cannot think of Braun Breaker. I hate that he went to Braun Breaker. But Braun comes in. I think they're going to eventually have to cut him loose on the main roster and just him to go wreak havoc. He's really good at what he does. I mean, I want to see if the kid's got at that level. Take him out of NXT. It's time.
Yeah.
Put him up there with the big boys, and let's see what he can actually do now. Because he's got the pedigree. He's got the talent. We've seen flashes of greatness on NXT from the kid.
You know who would bring out the best of Braun Breaker? Austin Theory.
Oh, I agree.
You put those two guys. Yeah, you put those two guys together. You're gonna force one. You're putting him against a not the top of the top, but a guy that's working his way up. But he's just gonna elevate Braun Breaker to be ready to be a main guy. But then, like, you could take that a number of different ways. But I would like to see that. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, I think you're right. Someone like Braun Breaker coming back in the fold, seeing what's up. One of the guys I want to see is what are we doing with Carmelo Hayes? I think he's ready. I think he's a guy that, like, they tease him on the main roster. He's been on the main roster, but yet he's NXT champion. So I don't really know what they're going to do with him, but eventually he's going to have to lose in order for him to get moved up. But like, I would like to see him. Like, where are we doing with him?
Yeah, he's got lots of talent.
Yeah.
I don't know what the holdup is in some of this.
I think I think it's good, because I think they're starting to learn a few lessons about bringing people up with no storyline for them to get into. I mean, the Viking Raiders were the War Raiders in NXT, and they were top of the card as far as tag teams go. They changed their name, moved them down, didn't really have any direction, and now they're kind of floating in this no man's land.
Well, hopefully they won't do that with these other kids, because I think they're fantastic talents.
Absolutely, for sure. All right, chat. last call, plug and promote time, man. You guys are headed back to the Bluff City. You got gold on your mind. What's next? Where are you at? Where can people find you?
All right, so Saturday, September 23rd, me and this guy back here. You can't hardly see him. He's back there. Trust me. My tag
There he
team partner,
is.
Brody Hawk. We're coming back to the Bluff, taking care of our business. Then we got our sights set on a lot of other gold up there in Bluff City. MIW Milton, Tennessee on Friday nights. Champion. The goal we stack is unbelievable. We're going to keep doing that. I've got OWO on the 23rd. I got Bluff City TV taping Saturday. That night, I've got to travel down to OWO, North Pontotoc, take care of business there. You never know where we're going to pop up at. We're all over the place. Just be ready. Before I got to say one thing. There's a badass shirt you got on right there. That's right. Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? You know,
That's right. 2-0, baby.
That's right. It's a sports podcast. We talk wrestling, but we talk other sports. So this is a chance for us to talk Cowboys real quick. I'm excited. I am excited. Like, you know, when they go and they beat down the Giants, obviously, you know, a divisional game, you always want to win those, but when you win it that way and your offense looks good and your defense is stellar, you're like, all right, was it just adrenaline of the first game? Was it you put the Giants in a hole, but then you come back the next week and you take on, you score some points against a good defense. Obviously, the Jets aren't the same without Aaron Rodgers, but you can only play who's in front of you, man. And, you know, they stepped up 2-0, a good start to the season. They got a down Cardinals team, which they should win. And then, you know, all indicators are that they should be undefeated when they take on the 49ers in a couple weeks. So that's my hope. And that's going to be the game. It's going to be the biggest test. And that's the team that they got to learn to get by in order to win a championship. So
yeah, because that team right there is no slouch.
No.
49ers are really good. But here's the thing. Mike, who's a handful? Mike is a handful.
He is hands down he disrupts a lot. He is a guy, you know, he's much like, you know, the 49ers, a Bosa type guy that he makes it tough for offensive coordinators to plan because he's just athletic. He can do it all. You can't really plan for him because he's so good. He can figure out how to still hurt you. But yeah, I'm excited. The season looks good. We got to keep everyone healthy, looking good, upbeat. The only one thing that I'll say that we have to do a better job on is red zones conversions into touchdowns.
Oh my God, that ain't where the piss out is. We can't even lie to you.
Yeah, it's you can't get down there and then get stuffed and then you end up kicking 5 field goals like that. That bothers me.
That game should have been a 50-burger easy.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we had a Tony Pollard touchdown brought back for a holding that ended up resulting in a field goal. I think there was another penalty where we scored Ferguson, I think, scored a touchdown on a pass, and it was called back for something.
Yep.
And that resulted in a field goal. So there's 2 touchdowns there that end up being 3 instead of 7. And, you know, like a team like the Jets that's down offensively with a bad quarterback, like you can get away with that. But a team like the 49ers or, you know, even like if you want to talk like NFC or AFC teams, like the Chiefs are in close games for that reason. They're not taking advantage of red zone opportunities. They won, but you know, the Bills, you know, even your biggest divisional foe, the Eagles, they're going to make you pay if you don't score touchdowns and you settle for field goals. So, you know, I don't want to harp too much on the negative, but if one thing's going to get better, I think that's it. And I think they know that. And I think it's going to be a good offensive week coming up. So.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Got to stay positive.
That's right, baby. All right. Let me hit this outro so we can get out of here. Big Daddy Storm, I appreciate you as always. Love you, brother. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Forward to the next one.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing how much gold that you can acquire between now and next episode. That's
It's gonna
that's
be a
my
lot.
that's my
It's gonna be a
task
lot.
for you to just go
Okay,
out,
I got you.
get your little mining pan. I want you to sift it out and see how many belts can come out of there.
It's gonna be a big ass mining pan.
Let's go.
Good
Let's
day.
go. I can't wait. Hey, if you like hearing us talk wrestling or you just like hearing Average Joe's talk X's and O's, please like and share the podcast on Facebook, retweet us on Twitter, listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. As always, comments, ratings, feedback, thumbs up, hearts, hugs, love. We'll take it all, and we'll see everybody on Wednesday night where we got episode 20. We're going to be talking LSU soccer. That's right. We're bringing soccer back. We got to talk to the girls from LSU, but more specifically, we're going to be talking to Maya Gordon. This has been the In Off the Bench podcast. As always, remember, strong body, sharp minds, grit and grind all the time. We're out.